Hey everyone, this is Ben Cicchini, founder of Give and Grow, here with another episode of the Give and Grow podcast. This is our social emotional learning series where we bring on experts and advocates in the field of mindfulness, social emotional learning, psychology, so that you parents can better be equipped, to raise healthy, loving human beings. So today we have with us Alison Villanis. Alison is an elementary school counselor with her master's in clinical psychology. She has a concentration there in children and adolescents, an MA in school counseling, and she's also done a bunch of pediatric research on traumatic brain injuries, autism, ADD, and ADHD. So super excited to get into this conversation today. Alison, how are you doing?
Thank you, Ben. I'm doing well, and I'm honored and excited for our conversation today. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, 100%. So like I briefly mentioned, this is for parents out there or any influential adults that are really looking to show up to boost their kids' mental health, to their social skills, their emotional skills. So can you just like in your own words from your experience, can you explain a little bit about what social emotional learning is and why it's so important for young kids?
Yeah, of course. I mean, so like the textbook definition, social emotional learning is like an ongoing process, usually like teachers or parents that are helping students know how to regulate their emotions, identify their emotions. Another thing that's important is communication. So learning those skills, eye contact, interaction with one another. But I guess my definition or working within the schools, I see social emotional learning that is able to help the students identify their emotions, especially I work in elementary school. So I think first and foremost, you kind of have to take it one step at a time. So identifying that emotion and then maybe asking the students, why do you feel this way?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you feeling this way?
Mm-hmm.
And then so going over how we regulate those emotions. So we're mad, we're frustrated, maybe instead of yelling or screaming, what are some other things that we can do?
Mm-hmm.
They always say that behavior is a form of communication.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned. Anytime that a child might be acting a certain way, they're trying to communicate to you, but they might not be able to verbalize that to you. So that's social emotional learning is giving those students the tools to identify their emotions and tell a teacher and adult, hey, I'm feeling sad because I lost my dog.
Mm-hmm.
And then to get that extra support that they need. And I think an important factor too is that post-COVID, I started working in the school during COVID online and going back into the school systems in 2022, a lot of the students didn't have that social interaction. They were on the computer. They weren't able to speak with their peers around the same age as them. So I think social emotional learning is crucial even more because some of our students missed about a year or two at school. And
Mm-hmm.
I really think component is so important for a child's growth.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I'm glad that you brought that up. I was going to ask that question of just like, why is it so important? And obviously, bouncing back from 1 to 2 years off of socialization for these young kids is a huge aspect and reason why. And, one thing I wanted to just drop in there as you were sharing that I never really thought about, but the social emotional learning, you mentioned how kids have certain behaviors and that's their communication at certain stages of their development, right? Because they aren't able to verbalize it. As adults, we're getting to learn about their social and emotional behaviors, through this process as well. And like, what are those behaviors that are communicating? I need love. I need food. I need, I need comfort, safety, whatever it is. I just thought that was cool that, like, while we're teaching our students social emotional skills, we're also learning about where they're at in the process. And I find that really just like a cool kind of flip in the tail on the head and a big reason why we're having this conversation here today. So, like, a follow up question on all that, Allison, is like, what are some early signs that a kid might be struggling with social and emotional skills?
Yeah, you brought up a really great point. So, identifiers, I would say is if the child is withdrawn. So maybe they were interested in soccer and they no longer want to participate in soccer. They used to like to hang out with their friends. They no longer want to do those. So a loss of interest, as well as going back to that factor of behavior communication. So lashing out, not following directions in the classroom. They're trying to communicate something to you. Maybe something going on that you're not even aware of.
Yeah.
So these of those kinds of things. The withdrawal, I think, is a major one. Lashing out in certain aspects, because they might, like going back to what we just talked about, they might not know how to verbalize to you or I, hey, I'm mad, or hey, this is going on at home. My parents were arguing and fighting all night, and I didn't get any sleep. So I think it's like super important to be mindful of those things, and that educators as well as parents, that the behavior is a form of communication. They're trying to tell you something. They might not just be yelling just to yell. And kind of going off of that, a lot of people ask me this question: why do we need school counselors in elementary school? They're like, all you do is probably play with them. Like, they don't kind of realize that actually, like, a lot of the students I work with, have a lot going on in their life. And I think it's so crucial to start the social emotional learning in kindergarten, because they're able to build those skills, learn how to identify, their emotions, how they're feeling, how to regulate it. So then when they're older, it doesn't become a huge, situation or a problem that they might not want to get into. So I think the importance of having school counselors at the elementary school level is so important. So I always kind of emphasize that. And I'm grateful that at my school district, I was the first counselor at my school.
Wow.
I'm glad that our district and all our elementary schools now, we have a school counselor.
That's amazing and really great to hear. Obviously, me and our organization are advocates of like just providing this support and this education early on. And so I'm so happy to hear that your district has, taken steps forward in that sense. And I'm sure other districts across the states are. Hopefully they're continuing to go in that direction, to provide that support. Because to your point, if you get a kid that's starting to get into their, double digits or their early teenage years and they don't have these skills, now they're starting to face a little bit more challenging social and emotional situations. They might have more life experiences where they're losing loved ones, or they're coming across bullies, and you don't have that foundation that could have been started being built, to your point, back in kindergarten, first grade. Then they're behind the curve, and it's going to be a lot harder for them to manage those situations as they grow. So definitely advocating for that. I appreciate you bringing that up. And I think it's a great opportunity also to just like let parents know that you guys can lean on your school counselors as well as other professionals in this space at a young age to help. And I know hearing it from parents that they appreciate that support from somebody outside of their family, somebody outside that can just reiterate the importance of these skills or whatnot. How can parents specifically, I think you kind of hinted on it a little bit, but how can parents help young children identify and label their emotions? You brought it up a lot. I'm curious.
Yeah, so I know I keep using the word identify. So, working with your child, if they're in the moment and they're mad and they're throwing things, identifying what are you feeling right now? You're mad and you're throwing things. So just identifying emotions, I think, is like the most important. Listening to your child, again, behavior is a form of communication. So listening to your child, giving them unconditional love and support. I mean, most of the time, children just want to be heard. I mean, even as adults think about it, we want to be heard. We want someone to listen to us and give us love and support. So I think keeping those factors in mind, giving your child love and support, identifying emotions, as well as, I'm thinking off the top of my head, like maybe watching a movie that, has emotions in it, and kind of going over that with your child, or reading a book. Or another factor, actually, my principal has a mirror in his office. So I think sometimes using a on the person you are, what you're feeling and your emotions. I know that sounds pretty simple and maybe kind of weird for some people, but honestly, just using simple tools like that can definitely, aid our students. And like you said before, which I love it, like parents, we're here for you.
Mm-hmm.
All my parents, the parents that, and communication is so crucial. Like I tell the parents, if your child has a bad day, just send me a quick message or just, call me, text me, you know what I mean? Because we're here to support. And I think a really great thing that I've seen within my school is communication between the parents and teachers as well as myself. Because I might not be always working with the student, but the teacher is throughout the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful to have a really great school that we genuinely care for this kid's social emotional well-being, before academics come into play. So we work as a team. I think communication overall is just the most important. And I know some factors might be families might not be comfortable sharing everything. And they don't have to necessarily share everything, but just giving us an idea because we can really, help support not only the child, but the parents. We have a bunch of resources for families as well. So we're here, that's part of our working with the child, but the family as a whole system.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I love that collaboration that I hear happening at your place. And it happens outside too. If you're feeling like, haven't really heard about it, check in with your school, see if there are those supports and the people that want to listen. You mentioned people maybe not really wanting to share everything that's going on and that being totally okay. You also brought up in our like pre-podcast conversation about mindfulness skills. Like what are some of those things that might be helpful that you were, when you're working with a kid that you bring in there that doesn't really require them to share a lot of things, but can be really powerful for their social emotional learning as well as their mental health?
Yeah, I love that you brought it up. I mean, so this is kind of just a simple one is breathing technique. I even have to remind myself, like all of us have the capability of taking a deep breath in and out. Using that, you can utilize it anywhere, at home, at school, when you're taking a test and it has to be quiet. So teaching those kids the skills of breathing techniques. As well as I've learned as a counselor over the past 5 years or so that working with kids and doing unstructured play. So like I'll be in my office, I don't probe for questions, maybe I know something happened in the family that the parent identified, but I don't bring that up right away. I allow the children the comfortability in creating a safe space for them, and they might be playing with puppets. So puppets are a big thing in my office with the K through, even sixth graders love the puppets. So using puppets and sometimes indirectly, they're sharing their thoughts and feelings. And then we kind of talk about it with, hey, the lion, puppet was angry, and we kind of talk about them. But I'm not going to identify it as them. We're just going to talk about it kind of as the, situation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I appreciate you breaking those things down. And I'm like the puppet, the play. To me, it's like going back to what you said earlier, it's creating a safe space, where kids can just feel comfortable. It's not sitting them down like, hey, what are you feeling right now? Like right off the bat, like let's create that safe, comfortable space for them to feel safe and comfortable to open up and share. And I love that idea. I haven't heard that one before, the puppet piece of just like them going through that play style and opening up naturally about what's going on and then reflecting on like, hey, I noticed XYZ. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I
So
think play is a really great tool. And sometimes I have had a parent that was like, oh, I heard my child just plays in your room. So we kind of had to explain a little bit further, about how playing and doing unstructured activities can be useful for children. And I think, children are so smart and they thrive on like people being authentic and real with them. So, I learned to genuinely be real with the students. And, we talk about real life situations because, I generally care for them and, whatever might be happening like in the future situations that they go through. But children are so smart. So you got to just be real with them, genuine, authentic, because they can read somebody if they're not being authentic with them and they're just asking them questions to questions. I've seen that before, like question to question to question. Students do not feel comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
They feel interrogated. So sometimes you got to just be real, let it flow, because children will open up to you without even really trying if you're being authentic and keeping that safe space for them.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense, right? Like you're creating that safe space, they feel comfortable. And then when stuff does get challenging in their life, who are they going to go to? The person that was just bombarding them with questions or the person that they feel safe and comfortable with? Like it's pretty obvious, right? So I love the play-based thing of building that relationship and not like forcing like trying to fix them or shove down skills down their throat. Obviously, we want to share and serve, but it's a gradual process of meeting them where they're at and creating
Yeah.
comfortability and safety. Can you, you mentioned a little bit about the research that you did with mindfulness skills. Can you just like share that for everybody and its impact on parents and the family?
Yeah. So I know that was initially the question. So circling back to that, a couple years ago, I did research at a school that is designated for children that are diagnosed with autism. And within the process, we worked with the students doing a mindful-based intervention program. I think it was a couple of weeks long. And we had parents fill out like a survey, asking them questions about their child, but also with them. So what we found in the research, which was really interesting to me, was that due to the intervention that we did with their child, the parental stress was reduced. So indirectly, the parent stress was reduced based on the intervention that was conducted with the children, which was really, really cool to see. So if the child is regulated and, getting that social emotional learning component and using tools that can utilize, it's going to help the parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not going to have those emotional outbursts, like we were talking about those signs, withdraw, emotional outbursts. The child will be a little bit aware of some tools that they can utilize. And then it's less stress on the parents, like you guys. So it was really cool research that I did. It was in New Jersey at a nonprofit. So it was a really cool intervention that I got to be a part of.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And I love that there is so much research, including the work that you did, like just around the benefits for everybody of this work. Like it's proven to improve academic success. We're just hearing about how it reduces stress for the whole entire family. Like there's improving relationships. There's just so many benefits to this work. And is there any like outside of the school, are there any other resources that you mentioned some books, you mentioned some movies that have emotions going on in them, like yeah, do you have any other resources that you would recommend families look into to like get on board with some of this skill
Yeah,
building?
of course. I mean, through our school, we always have like direct resources like for our families. So like on our campus, we actually have like Southwest Behavioral Health for like longer term counseling, which I refer a lot of students to, and families. Also games online. There's plenty of games online. There's calming apps. There's a lot of genuine things. Or like going back to what we talked about before, I'm sure families have games around and different tools that they already have at home, that they could utilize with their child. But I really advocate for families to ask a counselor for resources. I know that in particular, like I make a website every school year and I update it and I give it to the families. And it has a bunch of resources, whether it's for emotional needs, whether it's for housing assistance. So using the tools that you have, like they're there. And most schools have those tools. So I think, communicating with a counselor or even like RCID, like the behavioral people on campus, I think just getting hold of them. And we have so many resources, like online is just one of the best tools. There's
Right.
so much that you can do with your child. But yeah, the resources are definitely, out there. But even if you're just using things around your house, just spending that quality time, I think, with the child. I notice most of my students and even myself, we value one-on-one time.
Mm.
Time for someone to sit there, listen to you, play a game with you. They might start sharing things that they might have not even thought about because they're
Hmm.
not thinking, not feeling pressured. It's like the mom coming up to the child, like, what's going on? What happened in school today? Instead of like playing these games. And then the child just kind of opens up and
Hmm.
starts talking about that. But yeah, there's a bunch of resources in schools, through schools, online, but using things that maybe you already have around your home,
Hmm.
is cool too.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And once again, it, these these tools always seem just like simple, and so I hope parents don't just like brush them off because I think about it in terms of basketball sometimes or any sport really. It's like the fundamentals that create like these great players and these powerful moments, and it's like connecting, taking time to connect and not really going after the fix right off the bat or the problem solving right off the bat, like just connecting with people and then communicating with your community. We have these people in the schools that are there to help. We have people outside of the schools that are there to help. You have a whole online with all these different things we can ask for support with. But I love your reminder that it can be something that you already have, right? Like we come equipped with all that we need right from the jump, and it's like, okay, you got your ears, you're able to communicate, listen, and connect, and those are going to go a really long way. Um, Allison, is there anything else that you want to just like add on this topic, or maybe one last thing that you'd like to share with parents that maybe we haven't hit on today that you think would be helpful?
Yeah, I think just stressing the point that there's resources out there and that we're there to help you guys because life is
Mhm.
hard. We all go through difficult times and it's okay to ask for help.
Mhm.
And that, children, it's just pretty simple with children. I mean, they want to be listened, they want to be, heard and loved. And, I think just being mindful of the resources that you have and don't be afraid to reach out, to individuals and things like that. But I think the most important thing is making sure that social emotional learning, is staying in the schools. I think overall, not specifically geared towards parents, but the importance of social emotional learning within schools is
Mhm.
so crucial. And indirectly, it helps academics and other things that we already discussed. But yeah, reach out to your, the school counselor. And if there isn't a school counselor, there's usually like a behavioral therapist on campus or assistant principal or a social worker. So make sure that you utilize, the
Mhm.
tools that you have.
Yeah, thank you so much, Allison. And is there any place that like people can kind of reach out to you? They might have like really connected with you or what you've shared. Like, how can people get in touch?
Yeah. So my email address is my first and last name. So I don't know if that's already on the portal, but it's Alison.Villanis@gmail.com. So you can feel free to reach out there. I also do have an Instagram. It's my first and last name, Alison Villanis. So I would love if you want to reach out, feel free to do so via email or via, Instagram. And I would love to help or just have a discussion. I think it's important whether it's a discussion with fellow counselors. So I think even having that
Mhm.
conversation with parents or anything like that, I'm definitely open. So feel free to reach out on either platform.
Awesome. Awesome. You heard it, you guys. This is your invitation to reach out to Allison or your people in your schools. We can't do this alone. There's plenty of help out there. So we hope that you do reach out. Allison, thank you so much once again for your time, your energy, and just sharing all that you shared today.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on here.